You're listening to the John Doe Radio Show.
Smoking 2 joints in the morning. The John Doe Radio Show. What were you smoking?
The Stash.
flavor on it. What you working with? Put some flavor on it. What you working with? Put some flavor on it. What you working with? Flip this bitch, turn it into a pancake. I'm a mumble rapper. I could do with the best of them. I'm a mumble rapper. I could do with the best of them. I'm a mumble rapper. I could do with the best of them. Whip it work, yeah. Whip it work, baby, yeah. Work, baby. John Doe to the stage. John Doe. What do you mean he's passed out on the floor? Oh, God. Well, find somebody else. Yeah, just pick up that guy. Yeah, it's fine. Nobody's gonna know any difference. You think anybody listens to him? No. Just hurry up, put him in the chair. Just put him in, it'll be fine. All right, that'll work. All right. Nobody's gonna know. That shit was funny. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
It's the John Doe Radio Show. How much higher can you get?
Well, what the president said during the campaign, you'll be surprised to know, will be consistent with what we'll be doing here in law enforcement.
And now talking about legalizing marijuana and taxing marijuana to solve budget problems.
Prohibition doesn't work. Maybe after 71 years, it's time for a new approach.
We should be able to give our kids the message we think is appropriate.
A rational, safer choice.
Great celebration of freedom.
Legalize the possession of marijuana.
John Doe Radio.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's the John Doe Radio Show. Let's feel it for a second. Oh. What happened there before the show? You know? All of a sudden I was there, and I was laying on the floor, and I had a couple minions just dragging me into the chair, and all of a sudden I'm here. 10 o'clock in the morning. I have no clue how it happened. It's just magic. 10 o'clock in the morning, we ended up starting the John Doe Radio Show. It's a goddamn miracle. Good times. All right. Let's make sure we got the right pot today. And not that kind of pot. The actual pot. On our awesome Loop Deck Stream Deck system we got going on here. Big thanks to everybody that makes the John Doe Radio Show happen. Big thanks to Get Seeds right here, where you can get your seeds right here. GetSeedsRightHere.com. You can also ask my man in chat. Get Seeds right here. At any given time, he'll drop you the Discord link. GetSeedsRightHere.com. You yourself can get access to incredible information, access to some of the best and most reliable strains that are available out there today, because it is a struggle to get a hold of your strains. It is a struggle to get a hold of the strains, that are real your strains, eventual your strains that are real. So basically what I was trying to say there is that you would get strains that become yours that are real, instead of strains that you get that are not real that then become yours. So we want that. We definitely want the
better choice of those two. Let me do a little production check here. So we want that. We definitely want the. Let me say something loud. Let me do a little production check. Hold on here. We want that. The. Let me say something loud. Okay, cool. I changed the voice status a little bit yesterday. I just wanted to make sure that was cool. Okay, cool. And then Twitch is actually giving me the ability to break down your video. Nice. I should have went with a 936p today and crashed OBS. Sometimes you don't get the option as an affiliate to have listeners come in and they can like drop down the menu to like 720p, 480, etc. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with us. If you have not yet, make sure you follow the John Doe Radio Show. Click that link, the follow up top, and then as I mentioned, you can follow our Discord and other Discords. All you got to do is ask the follow link for the Twitter, and the Discord for JDR is right underneath. Keep bouncing my finger off of this screen. I like the gray and the white a little bit better. The thing is, we got this white screen, and it comes up, and you can see the difference. Like, blam! To this. It's like a spotlight right on us. Maybe I just got to turn down the brightness of the screen for the show. Maybe that's what'll have to happen. I'll have to think about that and do that. And then, we also got our little dude right here. Mini JDR right there is going to hang out with us on the talk version, and then when we switch it over to the display, he's up here in the left-hand corner. I got to replace the white background one with the one I did for the emotes, which reminds me, I gotta get 2 or 3 extra emotes. We gotta do that from my man 428 GTO. That's all good, GTO. Just an extra option. Plus, we're practicing for when we get more people in here. And this is more than just a weird monologue with 1 or 2 people standing in front of you. Oh my goodness. The time for us to be able to talk to ourselves like this with nobody. The clock on our lifetime clock is running down. So this today, I was like, when I woke up today, I was like, oh man, was this a mistake to do the 10 o'clock in the morning type of thing? I almost just went live last night at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Just started playing Red Dead Redemption. I was like, man, you know what? I can, I'm really into the RP thing, watching it on Twitch with the Grand Theft Auto RP. Dude, there are some amazingly funny people here on Twitch. There's just funny, creative people everywhere. And some of this shiz, most of it for some of these people, is like, it's better than watching Saturday Night Live, even at some of its best of skits. So it's very intriguing. And I got the country voice down. I can get multiple country voices. Southern, whatever you want. And I was just started playing through Red Dead Redemption. That's what we'll probably do. I'm at a part where, at the beginning, where I just never continued to play it anymore. So I actually haven't finished that game and played through Red Dead Redemption 2, which is pretty crazy. So we'll probably get into that. But anyway, I was like, oh God, what are we going to do today when we get energy and every other day? Then I started getting into the news. I was also a little nervous because there wasn't a whole lot of news today. And I was like, man, this is going to be our first day. We challenge ourselves to be the best and show them we could do what we could do and fill time with as little news as they give us, you know? 'Cause that's going to happen quite often if we're doing this like every day, you know, 2+ hours a day. And then even longer if we can actually be successful at this and get people in here. Because as news comes out during the day, rather than just capping it for clapping the news that we had the beginning of the day and then throughout the show. So basically, however long we go into the day with the show kind of cuts into the next day. So if we start the show at the beginning of the day today, like we are now, we're slightly light on news right now, but that's because we're talking about cannabis news. It's like afternoon, okay? Afternoon. Everything cannabis. Afternoon, all right? But yeah, a lot of it does come in the afternoon. So the closer you do get to the afternoon, the more you're covering it for the next day. And then if you start earlier the next day, then you just maybe have to cover things again, you know, which is not a big deal. I just don't like to do that because like movies and games, the attention span, not there. Even covering Virginia last week, especially when we got to Friday, was painful. For other reasons other than attention span, I admit. But I'm gonna say it's because of the attention span. But today, with news, we do have news that I got fired up on. So I was like, oh shit. We don't need this kind of news that gets me fired up like this exactly every day. Christy Nome, of our friends from South Dakota, absolutely farking the couch. I thought I was on talk. Sorry. I was so focused there on my rant and like focused rambling is what we call it. Make sure that we can create a fully integrated idea amidst a bunch of other jackhole ideas from John Doe's head. So it's pulling out an established productive idea from the non-established funky ideas that JDR pushed. You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. So anyway, the story came up with South Dakota today, which we'll get to here in a second. I don't know why. I think I just pulled up this Mexico one. Yeah, it's just out of order. But South Dakota, god damn it. Sons of... It's not all you, because obviously a majority of you passed cannabis law and wanted to implement and legally should be given both a recreational cannabis system and a medical cannabis system. That's what should... Wait, what? Hold on. I looked up at the screen and the juju was off. Yeah. Maybe we should go with a blue-green screen. That way, if we turn on lights and stuff, it's not like this, like... Or if we don't have the light on, it's not green in the background, like... It doesn't look that... in real life, I promise you. It looks green. But, yeah, we'll get to this here right off the bat. I told you yesterday, and this is one of those that I'm going to say I'm not super happy about. I told you so. I didn't think this would happen a day later, though. But, you know, when it comes down to news and talk show hosts and all that, when they say things... and it's this is what's gonna happen, and then it happens, they slam on it until the end of time, okay, until they're wrong about something else or right about something else, and then they move on to that. So I told you so yesterday. I sparked up situation. Governor Christy Nome standing in the way of legalization. We mentioned yesterday that South Dakota cannabis legalization, recreational legalization, was thrown out by a judge. It is going to be challenged. Thrown out by a judge because of the fact, the judge said, I shouldn't say because of the fact, that's like I'm admitting that it is a fact. The argument was, and Kristi Noem with law enforcement brought this up, talked about it last week on the show when she was sitting there. I mean, she doesn't. It's like if you were to elect, I think I would sound smarter. Like, I'm not trying to shit on anyone, not even myself here, God damn it. Like, she doesn't, it seems like one of those, how do I put this? We're just going to put this how I'm going to put this. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, but unless you're an idiot. During the Trump era, we saw an insertion, giggity, of politicians that don't necessarily follow the exact mold of politicians previously, and in particular, don't seem like they're the smartest knife, the sharpest knife in the drawer, just like me. But they're actually leading an entire state or nation. Just looking at her, when we were watching that interview last week, it's like, God, man, like they're being able to articulate a point is a very important thing, as we've come to realize in radio and talk show and news. But being able to talk about things that are arguable and scientific-based points, strategies that people should have on that end of things. On the other side of things, both sides of arguments, good and bad. What do they call it in whatever? Both sides of arguments should have some goodness to them and value and basis in maybe fact. And when they don't, at least bring something to the table that can be argued and isn't sideways and isn't the same old bullshit and rhetoric that the federal government has been spewing to us for years. We know is a lie. We know is an absolute failure in terms of policy, etc. In the places that have been successful of staving off new regulations and cannabis reform laws from moving forward extensively are places where they have leadership that has discussed these type of things we're talking about right here. This fear-mongering, weed is bad, okay, you're gonna die, weed type of shit, versus something that points to recent studies and talks a fact-based argument, you know? Reality-based argument. Okay, I see where we're at here, but and does the whole like smart political thing. And you see delays and actions there. For instance, probably what's going on in New Jersey, New York, Alabama. Wait, did I say Virginia? Virginia. But Virginia also hits on some of those idiotic arguments too. Like we're talking about here, that just they backfire on the people that are giving the arguments. Instead of being something that they think is going to catch and carry with their constituents and a conservative crowd, it just has the absolute opposite effect. Gives more fuel to cannabis reform people, drug reform people in many different ways. It's just silly. It's absolutely silly. And so today, news coming out. I couldn't believe this. The Marijuana Moment needs to pick up on this story too, by the way. I didn't see this in Marijuana Moment. This story I found because there was a lack of news today. So I was digging through the news and I'm like, what the hell is going on in South Dakota? And this stuck out like a sore thumb. So medical marijuana in South Dakota, Kristi Noem is now saying is not going to be implemented by July, which is in a lot of states, that's the deadline for laws to be implemented from the previous year, unless you're like Arizona. Goddamn, Arizona doing it right out there. We love Arizona. Nobody's done it like Arizona. In fact, I think it's almost impossible for any other state to get it done like Arizona did. I don't think it's possible. Governor Kristi Noem also doesn't think it's possible. So not only you have yesterday this lawsuit that hopefully gets overturned, that was accepted by this judge, and recreational law in South Dakota overturned, not going to be implemented, even though it was voted on by the people, because there was two. Did we ever get to the reason why? Did I ever focus on that? Because there was 2 questions on the ballot in that particular statement. In that particular question, there was 2 questions, is what the court said. And I think we nailed it down to legalization. And then, son of a bitch, I was looking at this and thinking ahead, and I just forgot what the other one was. Legalization and, was it the sentencing reform part? Shit. So the 2 parts is why what they said they were throwing it out. So it should have been a broader red tape bullshiz included question, is what the argument was, and that flew through. Why? Here's the main thing with this is why and how it did not. I gotta delete this one. This is not gonna work right here. Where is this? Road trippy. No. Okay. You come up here and then remove from media library. Oh yeah, that felt good. I think we got another one coming up here too in this bed. We got to delete. I knew I should have done that yesterday, but I wasn't sure. I was like, is it me just feeling like I'm on edge yesterday, or is it the beat? No, it was the beat. Some of the hip-hop beats can be a little bit repetitive and annoying. That's kind of why I like the synthwave, but it's hard to find synthwave that's not already claimed by someone. Even the independent stuff, if the video's on YouTube and it's their video, man, there's so many powerful tools for independent artists today. It's such a cool thing. On our side and this side of things, things are how they should be. And the internet has kind of like regulated itself instead of like an FCC license, etc., and big business and money kind of running everything. It's now these computer bots that hold everybody to standard, and you don't lose your company necessarily, but you lose your passion and your company. And we could have a whole show talking about the history of streaming and my fascination with it, and kind of digging deep into that. That would be great. All right, back to South Dakota. South Dakota now today being told by Kristi Noem that she doesn't think that they'll be able to implement medical marijuana by the date of July 1st. And one of those I hate to tell. I told you so. At least she's being incredibly upfront about her hatred and disgust. I forget what the word is, because it's like there is a word for this. I can't think of it. But the big thing for voters in South Dakota is that you pay attention to this, because this is hugely concerning. Okay, an elected leader cannot be doing these type of things. When it comes to, it's not just with cannabis. This is with anything across the board. If it's something that's morally repugnant, I can see that. But in that case, I would think that people would not pass the initiative, wouldn't become law, etc. Blah 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 blah. I mean, this is dangerous for you, South Dakota. Maybe that's what you want. I don't know. But yeah, we'll get to that in a second. That's the main thing I wanted to get to today. Basically covered everything. She's farking the couch in South Dakota, and you got to get rid of her. The big thing right now is that you form a coalition with the groups that have helped pass cannabis legalization. And the part that sucks about this We talked about this yesterday with laws and regulations being passed, not being passed, and having a hurdle put in front of them because of coronavirus. And it's the same thing here with this. Like, these officials and leaders know, when it comes down to it, the ability for the general public to get together and form some sort of resistance to this type of thing is somewhat limited, you know? Like, people are kind of scared right now, rightfully so, for many reasons, not just coronavirus, but that being the main issue that we're talking about here and influencing change and progress forward. As I mentioned yesterday, made a huge argument about that. You know, it really hits you more and more as you start to see how do I put this? As you start to see the results of last year's failed sessions because of coronavirus, you know, carry over to this year. Specifically, you know, when we heard the story of petitioners that couldn't get the measure on the ballot last year because they fell slightly short of signatures once everything closed down for coronavirus. And then we're not allowed to collect signatures electronically at the time, but now that's kind of changing. The thing is, until people become people become used to what we're dealing with here, if it extends past this year, or if it's something that we have to deal with, you know, in our lifetime again, at least maybe we do understand this process and the things that will come and how to better operate during times like this. But in my mind, when I see something like what Kristi Noem is doing in South Dakota, and what happened to petitioners, it's such a it's despicable. It's such a discouraging, shitty, underhanded, capitalizing on some of the worst moments America has seen in our lifetime. There have been quite a few of them. And it's despicable and it's disgusting. It makes my stomach churn to think about the type of person that Kristi Noem might be, you know, because of the actions she's taken here, the things she said in the past. It punches you in the gut, you know. And if you're someone that is close to the action in South Dakota and you've worked your ass off to get this law passed, to have sensible, you know, regulation added into the bill, everything all included, it is a mountain to climb, an absolute mountain to climb. So at a certain point, that kick in the gut, I mean, it's going to stop you from being as positive, from being as effective as you could be. You're going to stop other people from being as effective as they could be. So yeah. All right. And then we mentioned yesterday we were going to talk about medical marijuana in Alabama. I'll read you this news story, and then we got a couple stories from Colorado. This little stretch right here, I've been here. Up in Trinidad a few times. I wonder if there's any way to... What happens if I click that? I zoom in here. Nice. Oh. So, this is a cool little story, and this follows into what we're talking about with Colorado, too. This Trinidad, this is pretty much Trinidad right here, Trinidad, Colorado. This row of buildings right here, and out front, you'll see a nice... No, I'm kidding. It's a lot. It's bigger than that. Not much, but it's bigger than that. Trinidad, Colorado. The story of any other small town America town. Over the years, as time has gone on, small towns have gotten smaller. Farming, ranching communities have shrunk. People have just moved from smaller towns to bigger cities. And infrastructure, also something else, that causes that. No reason to be there for some people, so they're not there. The will to be there, not there. But you have places like Trinidad, Colorado. And this is just one example of many places here in Colorado. And as time goes on and we unlock legalization for some of these smaller towns, because it's been locked away since the very beginning, there is a large portion of Colorado that does not allow recreational sales. It may come as a surprise to you, but it is very much true. Pretty much the entire Eastern Plains don't allow recreational sales. You really don't hit a recreational dispensary in Colorado coming from Kansas and I-70. Is there one on the Eastern Plains? Is there one on? I don't think there is. I think the closest one you hit is pretty much right when you get into Denver, right off I-70. And then Jefferson County, where I live, here, luckily a mile away, less than a mile away. Or no, it's not a mile. No, the mile is the federal penitentiary, and then another mile down from that is a Native Roots. So there's still stuff, and then there's a Native Colorado right on the border of Jefferson County and Denver. I live right on the border of Jefferson County and Denver, but Jefferson County, one of the largest counties here in Colorado, does not allow recreational sales. Also does not allow for medical sales either, or any type of business. I should have just started with that. It doesn't allow any type of cannabis business to happen here in Jefferson County, and that includes unincorporated Jefferson County, which is even a larger part of Colorado. I don't necessarily see that changing very, very soon. You also have Colorado Springs and portions of southern Colorado that do not allow for recreational sales. So you have a pretty big portion of small towns, rural Colorado, some mountain towns, less mountain towns, that don't see the benefits of recreational cannabis taxes, which, as we're getting to, you see here, like places, Trinidad, get to benefit from. I get what we could do, but we won't. We'll get to the news story, because I don't want to. I want to stay as focused as we can. If we wanted to waste a little bit more time, we could hop into Google Maps. God, I almost convinced myself it was okay to do it. We're not going to do it, okay? You hop into Google Maps and do the street view and show you kind of old, new, because you can clearly see it in Trinidad and other places. You drive into Trinidad, kind of, a lot of older buildings like smaller towns do have, farmhouses that just look old. It's an old town. But once you get into the middle of it, kind of the Main Street area, you start to see these brand spanking new facades, and then a brand spanking new brick road everywhere. It looks very nice. It looks very rustic. It's a weird mismatch of absolutely brand new Colorado kind of mountainy, rugged look with shine. And as you can see, you kind of got on the side of these buildings. It's interesting. It's very clear to you and smacks you in the face what has happened in towns like this. So it's cool. Another interesting thing and very unique kind of to Trinidad is their row of dispensaries. So you have the Green Solution here. You have another dispensary 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 here. And you have another dispensary here. And that's one side of the road. I also should mention Trinidad is on the border. The southern border of Colorado. So quite a lot of traffic and tourists coming into this location. And I'll tell you right now, I've been to this town. I've been to this town before legalization. There's nobody there. It was a dead town. So legalization has brought these towns back to life. There are lines out the door for some of these places during certain times. Especially, I think it's down here or might be on another block. But Livewell is on the corner. Has a kind of the smallest store of all the Livewell stores by far. So line out the door. Livewell also owns another store as pretty much far northeast as you can get here in Colorado, a place called Garden City, and that's up towards Wyoming and Nebraska. So the folks from Wyoming and Nebraska come down to this Garden City location, and it's by far the busiest dispensary I've seen anywhere in Colorado. It's far and above anywhere else I have ever seen. So they have a massive waiting area, which when you walk into this waiting area, if you've ever been booked into a jail, this is exactly what the waiting area is. Like, legitimately, there's really no difference between the waiting area in this Livewell and the jail check-in. I hate it. And then to add on top of that, whenever you go into facilities, cannabis dispensaries, and you hand the guy your ID, checks your ID, he hands it back, and you turn and you walk to sit down. In normal times, now there's like 6 people over there, and there's a reason to be quiet because everybody's keeping to themselves. There are only 6 people. But pre-COVID, you would walk in, say the Livewell dispensary that I'm talking about right now, and there would be maybe 20 plus people on the other side of a door that opens, sliding door, and then you walk into the dispensary. I don't know if anyone has seen lines like this still, and they opened 3 months ago. Tim hasn't been to Cookies. No, this is I know what you're talking about on Cookies on Broadway. The Livewell in Garden City it doesn't even compare. Yeah, there's no comparison. I promise you, there's no comparison. I've seen it's like a 420 day every Friday there. Thursday, Friday, and Monday. So it's the craziest shiz ever. But anyway, the point, I do think it's crazy that Cookies has I don't think it's crazy that Cookies has such a long line that they do here. That definitely does not surprise me, the hype of that. But finishing out this story, which way was I going with this? Oh yeah, Livewell has a very nice store, a very nice cookie cutter stamped store, and every single one of their stores, which I think they're up to like 10 locations now or something like that. I don't know. They have a lot, and each one of their stores on the inside looks the same, and it's not badly designed. It actually looks pretty good for what a chain should look like. But the difference is, if you've ever been to this Garden City store, you walk into a booking room basically with concrete painted white. You have the chairs that are all kind of like stuck together. There's like a row of chairs that it's one block, but the chairs are carved out of them. Nice, but still remind me of a booking. And then the sliding doors, and you walk past it, and it's like, whoa. And then, yeah, anyway, that mother trucker is full of it is full all the time. It is the biggest waiting room I have ever seen. And this is consistent like this all the time. Is the cookie store consistently like that? They probably have drops, and then it's like quick, long line, and then moves. Anyway, let's get on to the more news. Let's say I'm going to be focused. And the Trinidad is something that not a lot of people are going to get to experience. This specific situation right here, and this kind of cool moment. It's like if you were traveling around and trying to capture cool and interesting marijuana I don't know, feels. What you know when it's like, oh, that's a vibe. If you're trying to catch vibes as a tourist and traveling around chilling, you know, this right here is a very unique one. Very cool. Very, very cool. So there's no other place really in Colorado, I think, that has a line of this dispensaries like this. Even in Garden City, they have a couple that are jacked together, but this is a very unique set of regulations that allows for this. Trinidad saw what was happening, and the leaders said, we don't give a shit. like we're gonna set up business and operate business openly and freely, and if New Mexico and the people southernly below us want to come and take advantage of what we have to offer, that's not our problem. That sounds like a you problem. It's not. It's one of the funniest Zoomer things lately, I think, that I can catch on with Zoomer wise. That's a you problem, not a me problem. I know it's not a Zoomer thing, but they've definitely taken that and ran with it. It's admirable how much they've actually ran with that. Yeah, baby, go with it.
But yeah, this is a vibe. It's very cool. I like Trinidad a lot. I don't like Southern Colorado that much, just because the vibe. But Trinidad is a very special place. There are very special places in Southern Colorado. Northern Colorado, it's hard to remember exists. Like, even when you try to think about Fort Collins, like, there's just yeah. Just go to the mountains. Don't speed on the highway. All right. And then also continuing on with everything I was just mentioning to you guys, numbers coming in. Colorado Sun is a fantastic, why can I not think right now? Fantastic source of information. Even better, I think, they're better than almost anyone else has been uncovering some things accurately and getting things information wise to the people here in Colorado. Really, we have the broadcast, ABC, NBC, channel 4, 7, 9, and that's it. We used to have the Denver Post. We don't really have that anymore. So Denver Post is used to cover this shiz. The Colorado Sun is one that has kind of picked up that. So we'll get to that, and then Connecticut governor we talked about yesterday if we got enough time. We'll continue on with that. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I need to take a dab. Is burner and cookie genetics worth all the hype? The answer from Get Eats right here: no old cookie shit is mad, but the new stuff that Compound and JBZ make for them is awesome. From the cookie store in Denver, at least. Cali is such a mess that the folks of Cali that ran business there for a long time obviously have been pushing the limits for as long as they can, because that's why Cali's a pain. That's why I can say Cali's a pain in the ass, because you can't get proper regulation passed throughout the state that's effective. And I mean, it's stalled. Like, there is ineffective law in the way that it was meant to be, and still in some locations. So with all that came a lot of chaos. Burner and Cookies lost one of their licenses. I think it was in LA. I forget which one it was. I'm sure they have multiple, but I think it was in LA because they would not get licensed. Yeah, it was LA, because the LA City Council gave them like 7 warnings. Like, legitimately, I think gave them 7 warnings. They had multiple warnings of
getting this grow up to code and licensed, and they didn't do it. So they ended up getting fined for a ton of things, including having people live at the location, and then the grow was shut down. So, I don't know. Burner probably has people that are attached to his grows, or may have been somebody else that, I don't know. Not very professional. All right, let's get to this, the South Dakota story, and then we'll take a dab. Then I'll probably have to use the restroom because it's, we're about an hour in. We're like 15 minutes, feeling about 15 minutes left in the bladder system. Yeah, all right. Biological clock. I enjoy doing the show because I enjoy cracking myself up. I can entertain myself when it comes down to it. But see, here's the thing: I gotta be like 1 or 2 people here at least. Like I gotta at least have Bike there. This is one time I can get Bike to listen to me fully. It's weird. Like I have his complete attention and a full monologue for 2 hours. It's so weird to think of that in my brain. But yeah, if there's the more and more people and the more swing I get into this, the more I enjoy this, the more I draw to this, the more it's awesome to me. The more I'm trying to figure out how I can be live all the time, more. And I was like, man, the only thing, video games, but then that's gonna, I don't know. I guess we'll just do video games. What up, Issa Target? How you doing, buddy? Yeah, we gotta be like Sequisha and do 24-hour streams, dude. If there was like 10, 20, 30, if there was people in here consistently, I would be live all the time. We never shut it off. I'd legitimately be like, hey guys, I'm gonna take a 40-minute break. Flip on the other side here. 40 minutes, come back, be like, yo, what's up? Because that's how it is. To the news. Governor Kristi Noem isn't going to stand in the way of legalization of medical marijuana in South Dakota, but the state needs more time to get ready for it. That's what she said, okay? And I clicked a beep on my headset. Okay, we're still live. I realize when I go to the bathroom, I can pause everything and turn everything up and down with the Bluetooth. It's not a good thing. Kristi Noem. And it's not like my other headset where I can just flip the thing up and be ninja. Governor Kristi Noem isn't going to stand in the way of legalization of medical marijuana. That's what she said before, but now not so much. Her actions do not represent her words. That's the case her office is making as it asks lawmakers to sign off on delayed implementation of Initiated Measure 26, the ballot question legalizing medicinal use of cannabis that earned nearly 70% support in November's election. So I'll remind you, her part in the lawsuit that stopped legalization from going through that, hold on, I was trying to make sure what I was saying was correct. Whatever. That's the case her office is making, blah, 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 blah. Working diligently to get IM26 implemented safely and correctly, Noem said in a statement issued Wednesday morning. The feasibility of getting this program up and running will take additional time. Based on South Dakota law, approved ballot measure like constitutional amendments and initiated amendments take effect July 1st each year following the election, but that's too soon for an equitable, efficient, and effective medical marijuana program to be stood up, Noem said, along with Republican leadership in both the House of Representatives and Senate who support the governor's plan to delay implementation until July 1st, 2022. So this should be... Hey, thanks for the follow, Bonehead. What up? So, what I was going to say before is basically... God, I got to get back to a point where I can enunciate and eloquently put my words of anger and frustration and not just want to fly off the handle and be pissed about this because I just want to drop cuss words and throw things. It could not be more clear. From the second we watched last week, the involvement that Kristi Noem has in the first lawsuit, and the lawsuit we're talking about here, did away with marijuana legalization, now has to be challenged. From that second, and the way that she discussed those things, and probably well before this, South Dakota, you probably know what better than I, it was immediately clear that she was not going to pursue the will of the people. None. And in a way, it seemed like she might have been tied to the medical marijuana part of it, which needed to be put into place because of July 1st, 2021 laws. The law of having to put the July 1st, 2021. God. It's a law in a lot of states that you have to implement law passed by the voters by July 1st of the next year. Just how shiz works. Plain and simple. The fact that she's throwing a wedge in between that date, the very next day after winning the lawsuit to get rid of the legalization part of this that was passed, I mean, it could not be any clearer or any larger of a smack in the face to you, the voters of South Dakota, and the face of reform across the nation. I mean, it's disgusting. If you're in South Dakota, you have to be frustrated with this, and you have to have your voice heard. You cannot just sit quiet, sit back, and allow your leader to do some shiz like this. This is some of the most underhanded bullshit, sideways. I should say, this is not even the most underhanded. He's doing it at face. I cannot put forward how frustrating it is to see what is happening right now in South Dakota. Like, it is head exploding frustrating. But based on South Dakota law, approved ballot measures like constitutional amendments and initiated measures take effect on July 1st of each year following the election. But that's too soon, as she said. Proposal comes after the state consulted with industry experts, cannabis public. Another thing with this, if you see who she's partnered with in all this, the police, mainly the police, really, when it comes down to it, and the anti-cannabis organizations and the conservatives in this state, it's not the Democrats, it's not the progressive leaders, and it's not the people who wanted this law to be passed. It is the people that did not want this to be passed. The same old shit that we've dealt with year after year after year, with one or two powerful groups, generally the governor. I should say a powerful person, and then maybe one powerful group, which is A, the person, the governor, and then two, B, it's so important we had to add two bullets to it. The police is the other part of it. So you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people and years of effort, years of proof, years of science, years of numbers that stand up and support these reform measures that are being put forward, that support legalization, that support even decriminalization. And then one or two people. And we'll include the police as a person, as a whole, because they pretty much are a person. They speak as like the Borg. Never really watched Star Wars track, but I did watch Star Wars. I'm sorry. Please don't leave the channel. Please. I'm begging you, please. I didn't watch that, but basically it's one voice. One asshat voice spewing the same shiz, the same bullshit that they've been spewing for decades and decades and decades. And we know it's a failure. We've voted on these failures now to overturn them and continue on sensible regulation, comprehensive cannabis reform, laws that help social equity and justice, and then one or two people just kicking it, standing in the way. Big old hurdle. This has now become the largest story this year outside of legalization on the federal level, which we're going to get to and is unrolling slowly. Need to choose my words very much better today. I think we need to take another dab. But this story in particular, and then in Idaho, which has not yet happened yet, if Idaho passes their law that says that you cannot pass legalization, you cannot add psychedelic drugs, cannabis, etc. in Idaho to be legalized, period. So if that passes, that could become a big issue too. But that's more like the beginning of a massive war. So we've ended a war everywhere else, and then there are a few locations, really Idaho. But in South Dakota, this is number one. All right, because we've already got to a point where the people have approved this. They've said, okay, we want legalization. We want sales to be put forward. We want people's crimes to be expunged. And we also want medical marijuana. It's clear. That's what they want. What the voters put forward. And then to have this overturned, an activist judge is the only thing. I feel like I'm now a goddamn talking. Get these activist judges out of here. We can't have this going on. Both sides are fucked, all right? It's not just one side or the other. I get it. I'm not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I'm a goddamn alien flying on this rock, and I wanted it. I saw on the Super Bowl commercials that they were doing drawings for the first civilian flight outside the U.S. Off this planet, all right? And then again, it reaffirmed my thought that they're never going to let me off this rock. So it's my fight that everything we're doing here and my want for humans to expand to other places. All right, it's not a selfish one. I know I'm not getting off this rock. All right, we jumped the shark way too much on that one. But South Dakota, in particular, a huge concern. So it cannot have this happen. And I really think with what Noam has represented it and the things she said and her politics to this point, it is a ripple of what we were left with and what we got from the Trump administration. So I don't know, and we've seen some of the things that were in place get removed pretty quickly, and Democrats be able to, take certain offices and take things on the federal level. So in that sense, I think it's not a far reach for her to get replaced in the near term. And I do mean the near term. Proposal comes after the state consulted with experts. Cannabis Public Policy Consulting, which has helped governments across the country and even Canada set up legal marijuana markets and infrastructure, according to a letter from CPPC attached to a news release issued by a governor's office. Creating a medical marijuana system requires, on average, about 14 months. And see what you did, Oregon and Washington and Cali. I hope they didn't include Cali on here, because if they included Cali on here, it would be like, the numbers wouldn't even be that high. I'm telling you right now. Holy shit. Oh, this is. So the delayed implementation of laws in other states and the bullshit that goes along with that, like this, what's happening right now, to even lesser extents, arguing of regulations within the framework that has been presented by the people. So you have successful framework, and then you have jackhat administrators, lawmakers coming into the mix and screwing everything up and causing a delay in the action. So that asshattery has led us to Governor Kristi Noem taking that and running with the numbers. Wow, that's very fascinating, because it's not 14 months normally. It's not. There's a few states in particular, probably Oregon and Washington, that have thrown this off. What's it called? Like in college, when there's like a curve and there's some asshole kid that gets like 150% on everything. Break the curve. Oh, I'll get to you here in a second, Bonehead. Sorry, I wasn't we didn't have a lot of chat in the chat, so I wasn't looking up. I was trying to focus in my focusness. Anyway, it doesn't take 14 months. That's the bottom line when it comes down to it. And this is very obvious of where this number comes from. All right. And the frustrating thing, too, is that we also have Arizona that got shit done in no time at all. And granted, they already had a medical marijuana system in place. But as we talk about all the time, stop with the reinvention of the wheel. We don't have to keep doing this in every single state. Like, the laws are there. The regulations are there. Take them and implement them. Period. It doesn't take 14 months to implement the law that the voters have passed, you idiots. Period. It's so stupid. It makes zero sense. It would be one thing, and it would be less frustration if it were just complete ineptness of lawmakers to get this done. But that's not it. That's not it here. It is a hatred and a disdain for the system and what we are trying to do and moving all this forward. That is the problem, and that is stopping this. When you see what is affected in all this too, it becomes incredibly more frustrating. The people that are in prison, the people that could be benefiting from these things, the more time goes on, the more you're allowing these larger companies and corporations in places that have already started to get a head up. Like, I was having a discussion yesterday with somebody in chat about, say, streamers, and one of the big things that's crazy right now is that some streamers are getting the same amount of money that large corporations are getting for ad time. So you have one or two people or a very small group of people getting the same amount of cash, or getting to now the same amount of cash that large companies, say Clear Channel Advertising, NBC Universal, charge for spots on their networks. That's an entire massive corporation. So consolidated money into these spots, and then inexperience added on top of that, you have this new industry that is forming, not only with the streamers, but you have the industry that is representing them, because Hollywood, etc., these larger agencies didn't move over. They didn't. It's like with cannabis. For some reason, it is kryptonite. So, in many senses, some streamers have had to reinvent the wheel out of necessity. Just like some people, I'm not trying to draw both of these together, but in the sense of established industry not necessarily wanting to work with a new industry, they do match up in some instances. And when it comes down to money, you certainly can match patterns up between one industry and another. And when it comes down to it, you may have these new startups of representatives like Devin Nash, et cetera, people that are in the know now. But at a certain point, there's a green light that comes on. And I think we're maybe at that point with a few streamers, Dr. Disrespect. Can I say his name here? And Shroud, XQC. You have these people that can pull in these massive numbers. And eventually, someone that sees this is a consistent cash flow for what they're doing and the amount of money that is coming in with it, those establishments and those industries come in and buy up, overtake, avalanche, and cover everything progress-wise that has been done by those who have had to reinvent the wheel and done the hard work. It's just sometimes the way that things happen, and it's happened in the cannabis industry. Longer time goes on, the more and more that we see it. If you're in a spot that does not have this large investment come in to overtake things, and kind of like exactly what happened in Oklahoma, it means your program is not hammered out enough for it to be as successful as it should be, or even successful at all. Period. We're at a point, if you are going to have a successful program that allows outside to come in, or eventually allows outside to come in, or speaking on complete the ownership there, if they won't allow the ownership to come in, then you have people that have reached the ceiling in their location, whether here, Colorado, other places, becoming more and more as time goes on. There's a ceiling here in this industry. It's hard to move up. You hit that ceiling in many places. You either be happy with where you're at, stay there, try to work your way up, or move to another spot. Generally, you've been at a spot for a while, made a name for yourself, especially if you're a grower. People take notice of that. You get offers to come to other places that are just starting up. For instance, Oklahoma. I've seen more people from the established industry go to Oklahoma than almost anywhere else. Massachusetts might be the other one, but Oklahoma is based, the whole structure of Oklahoma right now, for good quality, is heavy Colorado based, number one. And two, it's just heavy industry based. It doesn't necessarily have that Oklahoma stamp on it. And that's where we're going. And if you have a good system, these places are just going to be able to plug and play with it, unless you put rules in that protect your system for a certain amount of time. So, all right, we beat that horse dead. Yeah, we'll follow that because there's some housekeeping things they have to do to get this done, and also assuming that they don't get sued, which they probably should be sued. Hopefully they do get sued and have to put this together. Mexico. That's not what I wanted. All right, that's what I wanted. Alabama. Medical marijuana sales brings in tens of millions of dollars in tax revenue each year to states where it has been legalized, and many doctors... Oh, I was going to talk about Bonehead. Are you still here? Bonehead 696969. Your question was... Man, there's not really that many posts that can come up on this. What state do you think will be the absolute last? You were asking that to Bonehead. What was your question about the psychedelic? Holy cow, you guys are having a conversation there. That's so awesome. Oh, yeah, I thought it was a lot farther up. Do you think all weed is hallucinogen? Hallucinogenic? Cannabis is a psychoactive drug. Very lightly psychoactive drug. Yes.
It is not a hallucinogen, as you would say. It is not a hallucinogen as you say with taking shrooms, in that sense, on that level, but it is a psychoactive drug. There is also, on that side of things, a portion of that with set and setting. All right, the indica sativa thing. If I'm a bud tender and I tell you something is sativa and it's going to make you feel like this, and you're sort of new to this, you take that into account when you go to smoke it. That suggestion and that set and setting that you put yourself in is going to affect your high. It does. Ever so slightly, and it's not going to be something with everybody. You know, the more experience that you do get with cannabis, the more you're going to understand those subtle differences between certain strains, between terpenes, cannabinoid content, which we really don't know a lot about right at this point, and even in the tests that list that stuff. When we have bud together and you have all the ingredients together, testing for individual ingredients is tough. Extremely tough. We've barely got it down with THC. CBD, when it's included in actual bud form, for some labs, I think I'm better with it, but it's hard to nail down an exact number between labs with that, so which makes me question how well we are able to test for CBD when it's included, and then everything else. Terpene content, a little bit easier than the other cannabinoids to test for because you've got established processes for that. But the point is, everything being mixed together, getting an accurate measurement of that is tough for us. So the ability, as we talked about yesterday and days before, as labs are doing, to separate these ingredients, separate the puzzle pieces, learn what each puzzle piece is, map that out, and then be able to put it back together. That's where we're going. And then in that process, we will get better at testing and learning about what each one of these cannabinoids are, and what does what, etc. But in basic terms, yes, cannabis is a psychoactive. But it's not gonna make you trip. That's been argued in a court of law by people that have murdered people. Alabama. Oh, Drugs is in the chat. God damn. How you doing, Drugs? Everybody in chat, give Drugs a high five. Give him a JDR slap. Drugs has done a lot for you. Alabama Senator Tim Melson authored Senate Bill 46 in Alabama, which aims to find a place for medical marijuana in the state. If passed, it would allow residents to get cannabis cards for a variety of conditions. Some of those conditions are anxiety, panic disorder, autism, Crohn's disease, epilepsy, or a condition causing seizures, which I did not just have. Fibromyalgia, symptoms related to cancer, HIV, AIDS, and many more. Those are all qualifying conditions, but there is a qualifying circumstance as well. Medical marijuana can only be prescribed if traditional medical treatments are exhausted, according to the bill. Something that's not really known is, by the way, 1111 in the Mile High. Sending good juju to you, wherever you are. Something that's not really known is this is included in most medical marijuana laws. But here's the thing. Most people that are dealing with some sort of ailment have seen a doctor before. I mean, it's just... Even though this rule is there, it doesn't mean it's necessarily been followed. So like in Colorado, this has become there is regulated rule on this, but it's kind of not really. It's one of those gray area things that's not really followed. So I don't know why I spent so much time on that little part of factual information that makes no difference at all. So I apologize for wasting your time there. Prescription drug will come in variety forms like tinctures, tablets, creams. However, smoking, vaping, eating marijuana will not be allowed. If you need medication while at work, the bill will not protect employees. Employees will reserve the right to decide if they will allow. Employers will reserve the right to decide. And here's the thing. This is not a prescription drug. I'm almost positive the bill does not include this as being a prescription. So, it's kind of bad news writing on there. If it is a prescription, that sucks because that would... There's not a retail system that could be set up in that case. And it would be solely left on the patients to grow their own. And I'm pretty sure that this does not include homegrown. I don't know, that's weird. Not a prescription drug. All right, I gotta use the restroom. I just realized again. I will be right back. Bold of you to assume my time is worth anything. Listen, okay, everybody's time's worth something. To somebody or something. You just gotta find that, my friend. Okay? If you're doubting yourself, you're doubting your time worth, that's one thing, okay? But if somebody else tells you, like the John Doe, God damn it, if I say the time is worth something, it's worth something, okay? I know, I was joking too. Do I really have to explain when I'm joking? You're listening to JDR. I'll be right back after I use the restroom in the other room.
Live.
Funky. Hey, the number's still the same when I came back. Stop paying attention to the number. Drugs like, oh, you play too. Are you even listening? Legit before the show even started,
Bike had to come in, executive he is, and he legitimate he's just stop. We're playing so much, we got scolded. Got scolded by Dad. That's funny. Make sure you guys also follow my man. Excuse me. Holy shit, that came out of nowhere. Apologize. Make sure you guys follow my man Bike. Get Seeds right here. GetSeedsRightHere.com. Also, a very awesome Discord you can join to get access to all of this information. So make sure you holler at my man Bike. Post it up in the chat. If you're not a part of it, that's how you can be a part of it. Get Seeds right here. John Doe Radio Show sponsored by. Thank you. All right, where were we at here? Mexico. Marijuana hemp companies keen to participate in Mexico's emerging medical cannabis program should start preparing now, attorneys advise, noting it will give businesses a leg up in entering the nation's adult use industry once it launches. Something we also have to mention. Hold on. My ears are too big. I don't know how the soft foam of this headset pinched my ear right there, but it did. That was weird. Something that needs to be said about Mexico is the fact that we've been talking about this for a very long time. So this story and story like it have at least for the past 5 years. We've been talking about this type of stuff. So as I mentioned yesterday, and I awkwardly explained, probably in a very bad way, that made it seem like I was a little bit more conservative on the views that I have of doing business with Mexico when it comes to drugs, in particular cannabis. That's really probably all we're going to see. Never say never. I was about to say that's probably all we would see in our lifetime, but then that was being a conservative estimate. We've seen once the dominoes start to fall that they fall very quickly. So it is silly to probably say that. But when it comes to cannabis, it is something to talk about, and it is something to look into doing business with. Here's the deal. Let's put this in comparison. Doing business with Mexico compared to other places. Hold on, I just got a flash of light in my eye, like the migraine action, maybe. I gotta take it off the screen for a second. For some reason, that bright shine. I rarely get that. That exact situation hasn't happened. I can remember. It's been months. It's weird. Apologize for that. I think I did not lose my train of thought. The reason why. Here's an example. Here's an example for doing business in Mexico and the outlook being dim for it. Companies that are looking to do business for hemp and cannabis outside of, say, Colorado or California, Kentucky, wherever that's passed hemp laws and are going to have burgeoning, blossoming, explosive, I don't know what the right word is, particular. The same thing that's happened in the weed industry is going to happen in the hemp industry at some point. It's just the floodgates have to open and be unlocked. So also with the hemp industry and with the flower industry, you would think that our closest neighbor to the south, because we are going to be doing business with Canada. Canada has banned certain business. Listen, okay, Canada may ultimately, now that I think of it, be a bigger pain in the ass to work with and transfer weed back and forth than Mexico is. Oh yeah. Canada's recently passed rules and stuff for not allowing marijuana from the United States. But when it comes to Mexico, there has been other places, say Colombia, for instance, where companies have looked to start up things. And maybe it's also because that there have been looser rules in these locations that allow for it. You know, and South America, when it comes to drugs, cannabis in particular, the borders are going to be pretty porous. Are becoming very porous, and eventually will be probably the first place. I use caution when I say this because anything can happen, but that area may be the first place, South America, that has interstate commerce when it comes to cannabis and an actual system of flow setup. You know what I'm saying? Where it's not just regulated in one country or one state and it's kept there, and then the regulation there prevents that cannabis from going to other places. So there, you know, Colombia and places in South America are probably the first places we're going to see this happen. And we're not seeing that happen in Mexico for a reason. Because even if we get to a point of evolution where they have a retail regulated system there, the trust, I think, of even the most positive people of plugging in with that system there and not having a crime be involved with it. I mean, some places in Mexico are just not run by the government. Places close to the border. And that just reality prevents the situation in Mexico and what's happening here from plugging into each other. So, and as we mentioned yesterday, might be a few new people in here. The influx of drugs and the importation of drugs into the United States are coming through legal ports of entry, okay? Made it very clear to you guys yesterday that you are not seeing shiploads, containers, truckloads of drugs come through on the backs of people crossing the border. Okay. The amount of drugs that's coming in from other means other than a dude or whoever walking across the desert with a big bale slapped to his back, that is a non-factor in the importation of drugs. That is a legitimate non-factor. Is nothing compared to the legal port of entry. So it's silly to even argue like what we argued with yesterday. The senator or whoever the hell he was, you know, arguing to continue progress of the wall, and that because marijuana has been legalized, there's less marijuana, but there's more of other things. No, there's not. Not an increase of anything else. There's a decrease of cannabis. All right, I think we beat that horse. Mexican government has begun setting a regulatory structure for medical cannabis in the country, making it possible for companies to start applying for research licenses to bring products to the market. This move comes as the country works towards legalizing adult use marijuana and hemp. Attorneys who have been following developments in the country say companies entering the medical marijuana market now will be positioned to quickly launch in the recreational program, noting that has been the case in some U.S. markets and Canada. Any person or corporation that wants to get in the cannabis industry in Mexico, that's a starting point, says Roberto Ibarra Lopez, an attorney with Logic in Guadalajara, Mexico. His company name is Logic. This legitimately sounds like it came from Breaking Bad. No, I have a Mexican lawyer from a law firm named Logic. No, the dude's name is Roberto Ibarra Lopez. Yeah. Logic, Lawgic. Yeah. You want me to get you his number? I got it for you. This dude is the real deal. I'm telling you. Spring break 2016. Dude. You know why you don't know about it? It's because it didn't happen. Nowhere. It's wiped from the face of this earth. I thought it was funny. Mexico's Congress is facing an April 30th deadline to legalize cannabis for all use. Whoops, sorry guys. For all uses under a directive from the country Supreme Court. I need a producer. I can't do more than two things at once. Which concluded the plant's prohibition was unconstitutional. As I've said, we've been here before. That legalization effort has already been delayed several times, but a path for doing business on the medical side started opening January 12th when federal regulators published regulations for implementing the law. It's been legal in Mexico to apply for cultivation licenses for medical cannabis for some time, but it's been impossible to do anything. That's because although Mexico legalized cannabis for medicinal use in 2017, it took the federal government 3 years to publish the regulations. Yeah, and that's just the 3 years to publish the regulations. That's not even the years it took of false starts. We were talking about this on the original JDRs back in Warren Edson's office, which is not the original JDRs, but we just call those the Edson bike years. It took the federal government 3 years to publish regulations. Those are still being tweaked, but attorneys expect the federal government to start issuing licenses in June. It will take time to see products on the market. However, cannabis products, including hemp up to 1% THC, must go through clinical trials before they're sold, and cultivation on an industrial scale is allowed only to supply the medical market. Imports are limited to finished goods, and only pharmaceutical companies are permitted to import cannabis. Can you... Yes, they can. Israel exports cannabis for medical. Israel is an exports cannabis, right? Hold on, I gotta look something up real quick. We'll get right back to this story. The problem is there's no other places that accept. There are very few. Let me see here. Israel. Yeah. This was last year. Israel gave approval on Wednesday for exports of medical cannabis, paving the way for sales abroad that the government expects to produce hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. So now you have Mexico, and I don't know. I don't think you can in Canada. Is there anybody up there? Do we have any flapperheads in chat? That's interesting. Anyway, so you have a situation in Mexico, as I was mentioning before, of the plug and plays. There's nowhere in the United States that's going to allow this yet, except for Washington, right? Yeah, Washington did allow this. But that would be a very large mistake for any state right now, in my opinion. And maybe I have become too conservative and cautioned. Damn it. Why has this happened? Why has this happened to me? Oh, God. So federal-wise, I would think, and I'm saying it would probably be a pretty big mistake for anybody to export cannabis to another nation. But would it be, though? Would the federal government... We're at a point now where that may not be the case. Previously, that would have invited that would have invited everybody to come crashing down on you. God, does it suck that I'm all like, man, maybe we shouldn't do this? I'm getting too old. God damn it, I'm a boomer. It's like it's exactly like, you know, somebody that's a white middle class American male who is afraid to lose what they've already gained for the possible freedoms of somebody else to get what you have. Okay, all right. It's gonna, okay. All right, when we put it that way. All right. See, all it takes is a little bit of conversation in the brain. We got to do this. It's got to happen. It's the next step moving forward. All right, I will try to be less conservative on that end of things, man. I kick myself in the balls by doing that. I have been devil's advocate for so long when it comes to news on this end of things that, and then we've been stalled for so long when it comes to cannabis reform. The geyser of everything that we're looking at right now, it's something new again, you know? From the beginning of Colorado's legalization and everything that happened in Colorado, Oregon, Washington, all these states that passed it, and it just stalled. For basically the last 6 to 8 years. And now we have everything. It's exciting. And I've just become a little bit cautious during this time of like analyzing what the problem could be. All right. Cultivation licenses can be obtained anywhere in New Mexico, but such permits must be used in the state listed on an application, and that requires proof of ownership of the land where the cannabis will grow. I'm actually pretty stoked with the way that today's show has gone. Yesterday's show went pretty well, and we made a mountain already out of an anthill for news. As I become more familiar with things, it'll get better. And we haven't even, we've sent invites out, but we've got one confirmation for guests. And, you know, more people we get in here, if we could see maybe 10 or more people in here. Or maybe I just do a recorded interview. That would suck, though. Am I thinking about this too much of like getting an interview on and there's nobody really here? I feel embarrassed. I've never been in this spot with an interview necessarily before. Before it was recorded. Nobody knew numbers. And things picked up pretty quickly when it came down to the recorded part, because it was a pretty hot time during then, and we had the backing of Safer and Normal. All right, but that's neat. Talked about having good direction and being happy with things, and then you go and derail it. Don't shit out at the finish line, John Doe. All right. And for those of you that are new, we have a lot of fun here on the show. I joke about a lot of things, tongue-in-cheek. Drugs in chat made me realize that maybe not everybody realizes my humor. I've come to realize that my label could be labeled as asshole when I don't see it sometimes. But yeah. Don't take me too seriously. Unless we are talking seriously about things. But the side shows and all that stuff, we like to have a lot of fun. All right. And if it bugs you, you could say something about it. You'll just get booted from chat. That's all. I'm just kidding. Bike will probably mod you at that point, actually. Mexico's equivalent of the USDA is in charge of labeling and prescriptions and will have oversight of doctors and clinical research. The only advertising allowed is between pharmaceutical companies and the doctors who prescribe cannabis. So pharmaceutical companies can only work with doctors. Department of Agriculture and a couple other agencies will oversee cultivation and tracing requirements, as well as registration and import of seeds. So does that mean New Mexico? Does that mean Mexico is putting a marker? Are they going to put a marker in their weed? I think they are. That's been an argued thing here in Colorado, to where there is a is it an isotope? What is it? It's a marker, basically, that appears in the DNA of the plant and is legitimately a marker. I forget what it's used. There's multiple things you can do. There's a couple different processes for this. And that's why Colorado rejected it. Here's the thing. Colorado, we had this come across a couple times, and it got pretty far the last time, actually. The problem is here in Colorado, this type of shit, you're going to get a lot of pushback on. It's not the place to kind of like do this. You got to kind of keep it grassroots here still. In other states or in other places like Mexico, this is a place, something like that, that will be implemented a little easier. In Colorado, it wasn't the kickback necessarily from the community and from the industry with this. I think that would have done it alone eventually. But what really did it was the favoritism of one company and one process over anything else, and the monopoly it would have created as a law if implemented. That's the reason why this marker thing didn't get put into Colorado. On paper is the reason. I still don't think it would get shoved through, which we'll talk about here in a second. Is that news story up? Do I have that one up? Yeah. The potency limit that we'll get to next. The industry flexes his muscles pretty big, so I don't have any doubt that they would have, slammed this down. All right, finish out Mexico here. Regulations don't include a lot of detail about processors or manufacturers, and hemp is an afterthought without rules governing its production, although it's allowed. You have the right. The problem is you are unable to exercise that right because it's not regulated. Unable to exercise that right. Said, God damn it. Adrian Cisneros Aguilar, the lead cannabis attorney in Mexico for Harris Bricken. I swear it was going to be like the lead cannabis attorney in Mexico for Law Docs. I don't know. I thought I was going to think of something as cool as this lawyer up here had. I already forgot the name. Logic. LAWGIC. But who am I to try and fool anybody to think that I, JDR, Mr. Tim, could come up with anything as great as a lawyer naming his law firm Logic, based in Mexico. I feel like Hunter S. Thompson and Raul. That Raul would have been like, finish the Mexico story, John Doe. All right. You have the right. The problem is you're unable to exercise. Supporters of the industrial hemp industry hope to have standalone regulations for the plant in the coming months rather than having it be included in the cannabis legalization bill lawmakers are considering. That's a good idea. Congress returned to work on that proposal this week despite the perpetual delays. Attorneys are optimistic lawmakers will sometime this year legalize all uses of cannabis. Excuse me. You're not going to apply for everything at once, but by 2023, everything is going to open. The market is going to be fully legal. That's if the Supreme Court doesn't come in and overturn everything again. Just saying. Every time I read that story, because we've read that story, basically. Not that same story, but the same situation multiple times. Every time I read that, I'm like, and every time it gets more and more, maybe I should just take off to Mexico. I think I could do it. I mean, I really do. I think I could do it. No, we couldn't. We would end up like Jesse Pinkman and way worse. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be as valuable as Jesse Pinkman by any means, but we would still end up chained and tortured. Yeah, I mean, yeah. We would become the cartel's bitch in probably more ways than one. State Rep Yadira It's the name. The smoothness of the transition got messed up by the name. It's always the name. There should be a law that I'm not allowed to read names. All right, this is a Colorado marijuana story about flexing its big muscles and the end of the pot potency story that we talked about, and the story that comes up multiple times. Hold on, let me add some more beds in here because we're about dead. You know, I keep mentioning that this type of shiz don't fly here in Colorado, and you will continuously learn that it doesn't fly here in Colorado. The problem is with this bill and this law, and I will discuss with you as we talk about as we read through this article, how easily it is in some places, rightfully so, should be, but it also should be easy to knock down bad ideas. How easy it is for a citizen, everyday person like you and me, maybe someone that's, you know, successful and carries a name and a good career, you know, that type of person, their word and their proposals maybe carry a little bit more steam than what mine would. But this is an example of how far and how effective the everyday person can be. If this were not Colorado and this were some other state, we could be looking at quite a few things we're about to talk about that limit and choke off regulation in your state. God damn it. Did not come out smooth. A state rep here in Colorado says her proposal to limit the potency, with all due respect. We skipped your name because we did want to respect you. Proposal to limit the potency of marijuana sold recreationally in Colorado was just in its beginning stages, but when draft legislation was recently leaked and prominent figures in the state like Charlie Stash Entertainment's John Doe Radio created an uproar, the measure started unraveling. 100% take credit for this. We talked about this last week, briefly brought this up to you, and also mentioned that this has been tried multiple times and we've knocked it down because it's silliness. Holy shit, is it cold here in Colorado? Bike, are you balls frozen over where you're at? I looked outside and it's like everywhere around me is frozen. Like legit, it looks like the air is frozen. Maybe a little bit of snow. And then right here, there's nothing. So, all right, we're going to lose them. Need to continue. This representative from North Glen, Democrat, and a pediatrician is backing off parts of the measure and loosening the restrictions in what's left. It's like Namalsk outside. I know, dude. I took the dog out this morning at like 8:30, and it's legit been a long time since it's been this cold and humid. Like, there's a lot of humidity in the air compared to what normally is. It's weird. And now it's starting to snow, so it's going to dry out a lot more. But yeah, I could tell it was going to start to get snow. This week's been a rough week for like the headaches. And really the biggest thing I think that affects my headaches. I get migraines. Thankfully, don't get them as much anymore. 1, 2, 3, 4. Especially with medication I now take. It's been a godsend on multiple levels. But the weather seemingly has been the biggest frustration in that. And this week you could definitely tell. And sometimes you'll see me wearing gloves, as Adam Dunn and the viewers of the Adam Dunn Show last week. I ended up becoming the answer in the contest. Picture of me in my gloves. By the way, whoever won that, I let you win that. Next time, and it's not going to be that easy, all right? You're going to have to go back through the VOD and search. I'm not just going to show you. But I usually wear gloves. I have shitty circulation in my hands. It's just what it's got to be. And then a medication I take on top of it.
also affects the circulation. And especially my right hand like freezes. Yesterday it was like frozen to the point where it started to hurt, and I was like, God damn, I don't want to get old. Quick, back to JDR before it's too late. Exactly what we did. Anyway, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. It's a biting cold. It's damn cold. This is the coldest it's been all year, for sure. Back to the story. Given the pushback that we've had overall in the bill, and I was a little misleading with this, that she is a representative, but that's no difference between her and a normal everyday person, basically, in what we're talking about here. Normal everyday person approaching this representative and forming a bill with her. Something that could be done. Find a representative that has the same thinking of you as you do. If you're someone that's smart, someone that's successful, if not, get a group of people together and approach representative that can help sponsor a bill, that can help write things. Helps to have a lawyer possibly in that group, but doesn't necessarily have to be a lawyer. Find a representative that can help work with you, sit down, work with them over time, and form a bill. It seems way more complicated than what it actually is. It just takes devotion of your time to understanding the process and how it works, and patience, and understanding that you may be driving all your efforts into a hole that's going to get buried. But I mean, what else do we have right now? At least you can say at that point that you did what you could do. And then really at that point, you're not going to get out of it. It's not going to be your last effort. You'll see how the system works. You'll be able to take it apart, put it back together in your brain. Next time you come to the plate, you'll be able to approach it better. Very rarely have I seen people bail after their first attempts into reform and law and activism. Generally, you just build a fire more and more over time, especially people that are involved at the legislative level, politics. If that's something that you can stomach, you can have legitimate conversations with the representatives in your state. We're lucky here in Colorado, and it's really not like this necessarily in every other state. I can't imagine in New York approaching this from this angle is as easy maybe as it is in Colorado. A lot more easy in Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota. This is why you see some of these from left field attempts at undermining what the people have already passed come through easily. So for good and bad, it works on both sides. One of the coolest things that I have ever been able to be involved with is this legislative process and reporting on these things. And having a job where you're sitting there all day and kind of ingesting all this and taking it in. If you're someone that's involved in activism and reform, ingesting and understanding that process should be exciting. And if it's not, then find the exciting part for you. You picture me as a lawmaker. You can't, okay? So we found the next most exciting thing down from that, in my opinion, and that's reporting and educating on the news and getting people fired up to make these changes. Doesn't mean that we won't be involved. We have been involved before at the things I'm talking about. It's just, I've never had my shit together enough. And then even if I did get my shit together enough at this point, there's so many things in the closet that could be pulled out. It's the same reason I'm never getting off this rock. Same exact reason. I kind of feel like at this point, I can say some of the things I say and be judging. Look at you. Give recommendations. Because I've run my time. No, all right. let's get back to this. Given the pushback we've had, I've been way too jumbled on this story. I'm not paying the story and this problem that we're having in Colorado as much respect as we should. Because eventually, if we keep brushing shiz off like this, and I am, and I'm really not taking it that seriously, because I don't think that we could get to a point to where limitation of THC, serving limits, etc., things that would choke off the system here in Colorado and make it non-effective at a retail level. I don't think that's not going to happen. But that's exactly when it happens. So let's get back to it. This is important. Episode is a prime example of the multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry's growing clout in Colorado politics. It is an example of where the grassroots activity here in Colorado and the fights of getting 1,000 people or 100 people, 1,000 people to a meeting, health department meeting, 100 people in to give testimony. The industry has replaced that here in Colorado. That's why I argue that it's important in other states that you take care of your grassroots and don't abandon that unless you really want to for a successful system that involves other companies, outside resources coming in and taking your image away. You're going to be stronger in the long run by keeping those grassroots in. So keeping protections, limiting licenses in your state. You have to be a state resident for say 2 years, and then after those 2 years, you unlock it to people from the outside coming in. That allows things to flourish a little bit more. Allows the communities that are invested in this more to gain ground. Something we've seen here in Colorado, something that should happen. Didn't really see it in Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma ended up with the best of the best in this situation, but history will repeat itself, and this is a warning that if you do not protect that, outside interests will come in and take over, and it will be something that is lasting. So we wouldn't have what we have here in Colorado without doing these things that I've said here. You know, having this grassroots and base, this foundation that helps guide the rest of the way. And the stronger the foundation, the longer that you're going to be able to stave off these attempts to chop at the knees of your system. The more direction the representatives of the quality side of this system, the more directives they're going to have to run with these things. So it's important. And you don't want to have the industry come in and choke out everything that you've done and bastardize your program. If you've made it to a successful point, you've got everything rolling. Worst thing that can happen is shitty forces and everything to come in and change all that. As is the instance in Virginia and South Dakota already. That's not even talking about a regulated system. I was trying to think back of how much everything for the past 2 minutes made sense all in a whole. Hopefully it did. Some of the things on JDR, you have to listen to us for a long time. Okay, and if you've listened to us for a long time, the things I just said would have made sense. If not, you're new, you're kind of lost. Stick with us, it will all make sense. There has been newspaper articles with dire quotes. There's been opinion pieces, social media posts. It makes sense that the cannabis industry is utilizing whatever resources we have to write this proposal, said Peter Marcus, communications director for Terrapin Care Station. Because without any true research or peer-reviewed science behind the subject, this rushing to policy like this, which would put the industry out of business overnight, doesn't make any sense. And I guess ultimately where I'm going with all of that I argued is science-based arguments. If you keep those at the head on the regulation side, you'll be all right. And the people that are going to help you do that are the grassroots people and the successful organizations that have proven themselves to be caretakers of our industry. So if you have those as a part, I think we'll be all right. Just as we are here in Colorado, everywhere else. And the initial proposal, which she says was always supposed to be a negotiating floor, was to limit the potency of marijuana products sold in Colorado to 15% THC, the psychoactive component in cannabis that gets people high. I hate when they add, is every single story lists that. Is that exact? Why do you hate it, John Doe? Because it doesn't include anything else other than THC. It's always the most important thing, but it's not. But that would have been a big deal. The way that this bill was worded was so stupid. It's just like every other attempt before it to limit THC, overreaching for everything, all inclusive. Concentrates also. So 15% concentrate level. Yeah. I mean, it was dumb. She said 15% was supposed to be research-based for flora that mimics the way the Netherlands regulates cannabis potency. She said she has already cut parts of the bill that would have prevented bud tenders or retail marijuana salespeople from working on commission, as well as limits on advertising to prevent companies from marketing to kids. This is misleading too, because it's not retail marijuana salespeople. The bud tenders and the people selling your cannabis cannot be rewarded commission based on that. I think what this is referring to, and from what I've seen with the bill, it's referring to actual salespeople that get commissions from those sales, which is how sales works in every sales industry everywhere in the world. So to come in and chop at that, another silly, ridiculous part. We also already thought about this part of this side of things when it came to regulation in 1284, etc. All right, we've already put in place where needs be out of fear, which is stupid. And some of these rules still could use some overturning and some change to them, specifically this commission-based. If you work for a wholesale company, rewarding bud tenders for selling a certain amount of your product by giving them product. There's all these rules that you can't do. That you can do in other industries, and a lot of the time the alcohol industry sales, with marketing and sales based on some of these ideas of commission. And bud tenders in particular, kind of stuck in this situation where there's very little room to move up. And really, it's, if you're a bud tender, you either dip your foot into, the growing water or whatever, you move to another section, or you just move vertically from dispensary to dispensary. So adding on to bud tenders, because here's the deal. The incentives, the bud tenders are already doing the things, the sales pitches and the things that lead to these, that they're afraid this commission sales thing will lead to, like pushing product onto people, having wholesale companies give the education and give the sales points to the bud tenders, and then it's repeated from there. Some of these things, for good reasons, are not in place. But at the same time, if we're thinking about a free market, those rules shouldn't necessarily be there. And we should have an education system and a process in place on that side that brings bud tenders and consumers to a better educated place, to a better spot of being able to buy cannabis for themselves, make a more educated decision. We should have those things in place and be putting those things in place. We're not. There's not a lot of that in the cannabis industry right now.
In fact, it's something that's fought against because you have companies and people running these companies that don't know a lot about cannabis in larger terms, or are creating a product, putting a product forward. Mostly in what I'm talking about is vape cartridges that are snake oil in terms of being all inclusive, in terms of what they can do for you. Still, including maybe THC, still including THC, 80% THC, whatever, you're still getting that product. But the advertising and the sales points given are not based on a THC alone product. It's based on a full spectrum product that is unadulterated, not separated, not added back together, not just THC with, a little bit of terpenes that's plant-based, maybe not cannabis-based. This type of shit, it's already happening. So removing the reward incentive for bud tenders is silly to me, because the companies, the wholesale companies, are already getting the incentive. They're already, not kept to a standard on what the product is, what customers think that they're buying. So why are we punishing the bud tenders for that and not allowing them to have commission based, not allowing them to have rewards, from wholesale companies? It's the most frustrating thing I can think of right now in terms of what I've seen here in Colorado. And if I could fix anything and if I could do anything, it would be that: build an education company and plug it in with as many companies as I can, educating as many bud tenders, etc. as I can. It's a difficult task. It is a difficult task to plug in on not just one level, on multiple levels. And I gotta use the restroom again. Where are we at? We're at 2 hours and 18 minutes. That's why. Let's finish out actually, I'm gonna use the restroom. I'll come back, finish out this story, and then we have one more that we can get to. We'll wind it down here. Yeah, I chugged that water. I'll be right back. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the JDR. I'm a big homie, John Doe, aka Tim. I appreciate ya.
Live.
All right, we're back with. Ooh. I was trying to get the water warm enough so I could warm up my hand. It was going to take too long. Yeah. It's cold. It's still not snowing outside. I think it stopped everywhere, though. Or not everywhere, but at least outside the view of me, the glance I took. I didn't look that hard, okay? She said, back to this bill. She said, the person that wrote this bill, she said she'd already cut parts of the bill that would have prevented bud tenders or retail marijuana salespeople from working on commission, as well as limits on advertising to prevent companies from marketing to kids. We already have these things in place, lady. Caravio also wanted to outlaw vaping products that looked like innocuous items such as a highlighter pen. Bike, have you ever seen a vape product that looks like a highlighter pen outside of the black market or inside of a head shop in a regulated shop here in Colorado or advertised? Have you ever in your life seen anything vape wise that looks like a highlighter, a marker, a pop can, a cigarette? Yeah, Amazon. Not here in Colorado, though. That side of things is frowned upon here. We don't really take too kindly to the shoving things under the table. Like, that type of product has never really flown here in Colorado on the regulated side of things. So that type of stuff does not go over well in stores with staff. Whoa, out of battery. Well, let's go over here. I mean, we want, as shitty as things are sometimes with staff and education, the process here in Colorado, I'm still pretty happy with how we've stayed true. As true as we can. That's probably giving a lot of credit, way more credit than what's due here, because really everything's been bastardized, but it could have been a lot worse. Things could have been way worse here in Colorado. We actually ended up with overall relatively decent quality standards across the board set by the industry themselves. So we didn't have situations where, I mean, we did. I could name a few names, but those got shoved out pretty quickly. Situations of events in the industry that led to rule changes or things appearing. A few of them. I'm thinking of a washing machine in particular, but it's been very rare that we haven't dictated ourselves, and ourselves became corporate and organizations, you know, like we kind of shit on yesterday, NCIA, which is a national organization, but still is located here in Colorado. At least the head and most of the people. The main office is located here in Colorado. So we've kept that type of shit at bay. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, why the trust is so high with MPP, a lot of what we represent at that grassroots level and we're successful at and want, MPP echoes, unlike anybody else. I didn't think it was going to take that long. Give me a second. I'm plugging this battery. We may not be a pro streamer yet here on Twitch, but technically we are a professional broadcaster. Yeah. So
She said she's already cut parts of the bill. We said that. Marketing for kids, blah, 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 highlighter pin. I think those fights are fights to take on at another time, she said. Yeah, we know you're going to keep bringing this to the table because it's something that is consistently brought to the table and it's something that's consistently knocked down. Just don't get the point, do you? She's one of the first Democrats in the state to clash with the marijuana industry. Said she launched her efforts because the products available now are not the products Colorado legalized. Yeah, they are. Here's the thing. The products that Colorado legalized, and it states this, legitimately states this, anything that can be made from the cannabis plant or the seed. If it is just the only ingredients are from this magical plant that just pops up and gets us high, along with a myriad of other things, that's legal in the state of Colorado for both medicinal and recreational purposes. In fact, both the medicinal and the recreational law written in our state constitution state exactly that, the exact same thing. Anything derived from the cannabis plant or its seed is a legitimate product. Now, there's a line that we kind of hit when we go to concentrates. And past that, there's been a few things, but they have dealt with the delivery method and not the actual cannabis plant itself. There may be situations that you can, we can't include these things in FDA, like milk, necessarily like meat, can't be selling a meat pizza that's medicated, even though we've had that here in Colorado before. One of the most lit I have ever been off an edible. I don't get that lit off of edibles, but that pizza lit me up. Maybe it was like a set and setting type of thing. You know what I'm saying? It's funny. I saw G4TV came back with Blair Herter. He's like the lead of all this stuff. And when December was doing the JDR show, G4TV got in touch with her and invited her as a part of JDR, which I think I was supposed to be a part of this. She just ran with it. I think at the time she was frustrated that there was not a lot. She felt like I was handling everything, which I probably was. Surprise, surprise. Wasn't letting a lot of outside thoughts come in and control happen. We won't do that anymore, but we'll try not to. But at the time, G4TV contacted her, and then we did a story with them. She did a story with them. I gave a bunch of information, the back end, but she sat down and did an interview with Blair Herter, and we showed them around a few places here in Colorado, and in particular, Ganja Gourmet on Broadway. And it was this fella, Italian guy from, Jewish Italian guy from New York. Character. What's his name? I can't remember his name. Mike, do you remember his name? They still have this place, but this place would cook like pizza and food items at home or in a kitchen outside of the Ganja Gourmet, and then it was brought in and then like heated up and served. At the time, it was the coolest shit ever, man. We go down there and hang out and smoke weed. Paul Token was my caregiver at the time. We were hanging out a bunch, and he was living in the area. I was living in the area. It was legit. Well, before all this like regulation and shit came in, there was just so many very unique scenarios that I don't think a lot of people are going to get to experience, and I don't take that lightly. It's very cool. It's very, very cool. But yeah, I saw Blair Herter and G4 TV back here on Twitch, and I was like, wait. I'm like flipping through the channels, and that's my week with that guy before. But yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. What's her name was still there too. She's a big movie star now. Was a boyfriend to Aaron Rodgers for a while. Damn. Yeah, she got her start over there at G4 TV. She was there, but she didn't make the trip out to Colorado, unfortunately. I didn't get to meet her. It's interesting because G4 TV, like all the promotions and stuff they did and the talk, like Blair on Twitter, and when I went back and looked, it seemed like they thought they were going to end up on broadcast TV with Comcast, like on a channel again. And then they end up on Twitch. I wonder if that was a punch to any of them. Listen, it's a better situation that you're here than on broadcast TV. I'm telling you. You're in way more control here. And then the funny thing is like they rely on the, like, who owns G4? Like, just do it yourself. I don't know why they didn't do it themselves. And they waited for like this. That's not the way things happen anymore. We've talked about this. You can get that money, just a few people, rather than having a large company that's still signed with Comcast, owned by Comcast, and come do your thing. Just rebrand. Like, I don't get why they did that. That was some boomer thinking right there. So we're talking back here in Colorado about this limited bill that is not, it's going to fail. Many strains of marijuana flower that are sold in Colorado have a potency above 15%. She's particularly worried about children's access to cannabis concentrates, which can have a THC makeup of 70% or higher, and their effects on a developing brain. As we've told you before here, ladies and gentlemen, a full spectrum extract concentrate should test between 60 and 75% THC. That allows room for your other cannabinoids and terpenes to be apart and allows you to not get ripped off. So even though you think that the 80%, 85% full spectrum extract that you're getting, those diamonds, you think, you're so like stoked on that, stop it. Okay? You're getting ripped off. There's one of two things happening in that situation. They're either taking the diamonds out or they were not good enough to preserve quality terpenes and have based their product solely off of the diamonds taken from there. Diamonds is diamonds, bitch. All right? The bigger the diamond depends on definitely the strain, but it also depends on the quality of all the ingredients that go in it, all right? You cannot make a soup with a bunch of shit in it, all right, and have it cook, and then the end product be this just amazing, magnificent thing that you're going to enjoy. No, okay? If there's a bunch of contaminants inside the extract, as that cures out and as that moves forward, the ability for the product to do what it's intended to do, for instance, how you make diamonds, all that bling bling that you see, you just put it inside of an enclosed space, particularly a jar. Glass jar is the best, but you can also put it inside of a metal vessel, close it, put a little pressure, maybe, a little bit of heat, but generally, you just close it, and there's the right ratio of terpenes. It's going to quickly, eventually it will separate out if you just let it sit there. But depending on the ratio of terpenes and the other cannabinoids in that, it will separate out quicker, and it will also form diamonds quicker. The easier the THC can slide out of the party, like JDR in his old age, just be there for a few seconds and then just out, the better formations of diamonds you generally get, the larger formations of diamonds you generally get, and an indicator of the overall quality, etc. So as we said before, you can look to THC to identify quality in various different ways, whether it comes from whether it's just in the plant form, estimating the range of THC and what it should be for the quality of the plant when you're looking at these things online and you can't actually see the bud. Okay, we can accept that. And then when it comes to an actual visual representation of the quality of extract, which isn't all the time, is sometimes you have the good looking shit and it still has these weird contaminants and weird oils that have been pulled out of the soil with it. Particularly is the ocean shit. Things that have oils inside of the substrate that you use with your the plant. A lot of those, even with the best of flushes, get pulled off up into the plant and pulled off during the extraction process. If it's an oil, it's going to be pulled from the cannabis plant. We don't want that other shit in there.
Anyway, that's sidetracked education there for why it is very important to get what you pay for and be a smarter. This is why it's so important for education to happen in our industry, because you don't need to be fooled as a consumer. And then you have things like this THC fallacies that are spread that continue on. You know, with the lack of education and not adding in these other anyway, et cetera, et cetera. Colorado currently has no potency limit, as we shall never have. We will never have a potency limit here in Colorado. If we do, it will destroy the system. We haven't reevaluated. It will destroy the system anywhere. We haven't reevaluated what the industry has done in terms of effects on youth and overall effects since we legalized marijuana. Here's the thing, Mrs. Caraveo. We have the best of the best studying these things, okay? Colorado State University, one of the leading campuses, one of the leading colleges when it comes to agricultural testing, study, regulations. It is relied on by the state regulators. It can be relied on by cannabis regulators. They are doing studies on multiple things, in particular concentrates. It is a multi-year study. I'm pretty sure that we're entering into that multi-year now as we speak. So we should be hearing results and information from these up-to-date, localized studies that talk about these things that these people say is not happening. These things were put in our law because people like Representative Caraveo expressed their concerns, because we understood that there were some things we needed to meet the other side in the middle at. So we're doing that. The easiest thing we can meet the other side in the middle at is proving that this is a non-harmful, non-starter topic. As far as the sky falling and anything they have to argue, okay? You're going to be able to argue smoking causes harm, all right? But beyond that, we'll take you on any day. I mean, we've thought of these things in Colorado. We haven't got to where we've got now successfully without thinking of these things. Of the states that have legalized recreational marijuana sales, only Vermont has a potency cap. The state's legislature imposed a 30% limit on THC for cannabis flower and a 60% THC limit on cannabis oil products. The 60% THC limit is like almost in a way, I don't want to say this, but it's like almost in a back around with everything we've discussed, a good thing for consumers concentrate wise, but it's not gonna, that's not how it's not how it's operated. That just gives operators more room to dilute their product and add in other things that have been, proven to this date. For instance, vaping, not necessarily the most healthy additives and products. So you can't just throw in and then some companies just can't throw in full spectrum into an enclosed container without forming the diamonds in vaping products, is what we're talking about in particular here. Because when it comes to overall regular concentrates, this law would lead towards more advertising of full spectrum, the good things that we're talking about. And then on the side of vape cartridges, the actual quality and responsibility to the consumer would go out the window. I mean, the cutting down a vape cartridge to 60%. Yeah, that's not good for the consumer. All right, let's wind down here. What we got here? I don't even know what these are. I need to figure out how to get this to tell me. Yeah, I got to put that in a category. I got to figure out how this to tell me over here what genre they're in. Right now, I'm just throwing the beds in there. I'd like to have a little bit more control of the vibe. And right now, everything's just labeled by track name. And then the other information that you guys don't give a shit about, I'm now realizing, is included in others. I have to figure that all out. I tried yesterday, and I've never needed that because I've never filed in categories things that I've categorized in this as I'm doing. So maybe I just need to go back and do it a different way. All right. The big difference between how Vermont handled its potency caps and what Caraveo is trying to do is that Vermont's limits were put in place when recreational marijuana was legalized late last year. Colorado's marijuana industry has been operating without potency caps since recreational sales began in 2014, and cannabis advocates argue it would be hard to put the smoke back in the pipe. Shut the fuck up. I praised the Colorado Sun at the beginning. That's only because they have some coverage that others don't, but it's still one of them type of small town represented things. So where they're wrong here in two locations. Number one, shouldn't have said that, assholes. Two, we've already discussed potency cap limits, and even at the very beginning, in 1284, when after we had legalized marijuana, even after we legalized medical marijuana, well before recreational sales, this topic came up. It was one of the first things that came up. It's been discussed. It's been hammered out almost more than anything else. Serving and potency limits on edibles is about the only other thing that I can think of that's argued more than this. So to say we haven't discussed this is an absolute bullshit lie. This would be problematic on a number of levels, said Mason Tvert. Oh, yeah. That's our man. Who's he with now? First Strategies. This would be problematic on a number of levels, said Mason Tvert, partner at the cannabis policy and public affairs firm VS Strategies, who helped lead Colorado's 2012 marijuana legalization campaign. As we said yesterday, without Mason and Safer organizing and sewing together the fabric of all the awesomeness we had to offer here in Colorado and organizing it, he is the man. He will ultimately be considered the grandfather of cannabis here in Colorado. That's kind of crazy. I knew Mason literally the year he came out of college. And I've hung out with Mason, and to see him go from that, like, it's another one of those people that we could list off that started from the bottom, and now he's here. I mean, Mason can do whatever he wants in the cannabis industry. He's been that successful. I cannot point out a more successful individual on the legislative level than Mason Tvert for cannabis. Not just here in Colorado, all over. But yeah, he was just one of the homies, man. Like, legitimately lived with a couple other dudes in this spot in downtown. I mean, he's lived in multiple spots, but this spot that I'm thinking of now when I first met him, I mean, lived with the sexy pizza dudes. And is like you're out of college, you know, hanging out, party, friends, a bunch of single dudes. It's so crazy to think that's where a lot of these people will come. You could do it too, is where I'm talking about. You could do this, all right? It used to bum me out that I was not a part of the group, and I fumbled I should be there too. There's no reason why I should not be any further than... We should have built a pillar. Okay, it's my failures and my downfall. Because the opportunities were there, and the people around were there. So it used to bum me out, that fact. Led to some drinking, led to some whatever. But now, I mean, I think as you can see, I'm like, giddy much. It legitimately makes me excited to see these things. Probably for selfish reasons, because it gives me inspiration again, you know, feel that. But yeah, Mason's a great guy. Fantastic dude. I've interviewed him tons and tons of times, hung out with him, and weirdly enough, whenever I got him on air, I always feel like I fumbled almost. Probably every single interview I've done with him, I feel like I fumbled in some way or another. Probably because I considered him too much of a friend. Like, try to take it from, I don't know. I always make it feel weird on air.
Primary reason being that this is going to incentivize new illegal supply to meet demand for whatever products are no longer allowed. But more importantly, there's really no good justification for it, says Mason. Truman Bradley, who leads the marijuana industry group, the MIG, attacked the proposal for not being based on data. This is not a bill that's scientifically backed. One study out of the United Kingdom and published in a peer-reviewed journal. What journal? Oh, they got this from CNN. Good work, Colorado Sun. One study out of the United Kingdom. They didn't even you could take from this link right here. I'm looking down here. Probably can't see it on goes to CNN. You couldn't look at the CNN article and then go look at that study, read it yourself, and then quote the study. Therefore, your journalism is a little bit more accurate. See, that's the problem with journalism. And another thing that I wanted to add in with this story, and there's just been so many things to attack on the regulation side that's being presented. It's been hard to attack the journalism that's been done here. Okay, the problem with journalism today is not the fact that there is not good journalism that exists. It's just too easy to have the talking head give opinion journalism, like what we're doing here on JDR. Exactly what we're doing. I'm not paid to dig into and research stories as a journalist should, as I learned and has been passed down through generations and generations through journalists over the years. There is a process that goes along with that. And here's the thing. Everybody thinks they're a journalist. And that sounds jaded, but we're just looking at the truth here, okay? Everybody's got a iPhone camera on them. It's the same thing with photographers and professional side of that thing. It's in some instances, a lot of ways you could do away with the professional aspect of journalism because you have the access to the internet and everybody can put up a story however they want, in whatever means that they want. The talking heads with CNN and Fox News, the opinion that was put forward rather than just speaking based on fact. That's where we are at with journalism today. There's no incentive for companies to put forward raw news stories. So journalists are not directed along the lines of being accurate. They're more directed along the lines of presentation and what will fit the reader and what the reader or the viewer will chew on. And because there's so many other people out there that will give the opinions and pass on information, hearsay, articles written, exactly the things that we're doing here on JDR, because that thing has become so prevalent, the actual journalism and the source of the information gets diluted down. And that's frustrating. And that's why people don't trust journalism anymore. It's just not looking in the right places. They don't trust the ones they should have trusted because they ended up getting separated, and then everybody included the good ones with the bad ones. So that's where we are with journalism. That's what sucks. So, we'll get back to covering the basis of information and getting to people that are bringing to you new techs and stuff like that. Cryotech. Looked at it more yesterday, trying to figure out where we were going to go with that. Could easily get the cryo company here on the show, but as with some of the things that we see here, like right here, can you freeze dry? Where was it? Yeah, right here, the very first question, which was my very first question. What's the difference in cryo freeze and what cryo cure? What you're doing as a company? I got to show you the massive tank they have too. What are you doing here, and what could be done different elsewhere? Patent pending process that applies to a specific range of time, temperatures, and pressure. Basically, they give you the runaround here. You don't learn anything new. So is getting these people on with us, are we going to learn anything new from them? Or would it be better? Or are we just going to give them a free advertisement at that point? What I want to know is this process and the details in it. So finding someone that uses this process, has toyed around with it, knows the ins and outs, can kind of give us the science from that point of view. feels better to me than getting someone from this company who may be a sales rep and not know a lot about anything besides sales. So these are the things I think about when we get guests here. Look at this tank. 625 square feet of internal shelf space, 600 to 1,200 pounds of cannabis or hemp at a time. Look at that dude right there. Looks like it hasn't quite yet been installed. It's sitting on blocks. That's a big ass tank there. Look, if the cryo curing of weed doesn't work, they could just put bodies in there when they die and then store them. Charge them $100,000 a piece, pay for the one, and then you got room 625 square feet to put more in there. And you just buy another one. And you buy another one. You buy another one. Somebody goes out of business, power goes out. And a real problem. These are future problems we're thinking about here. But yeah, that bill got smacked down, and then it goes on to talk about a bunch of other crap. Yeah, and then ultimately getting to the bottom of it, Jared Post is not going to sign a bill like this into law. So even these guys know, unlikely to cross the cannabis industry, says he supports other ways of driving down youth marijuana. Yeah. Zero chance while Polis is in office that anything like that gets signed, even if they get close to having it reach his desk, which is not going to happen. The only times we've seen something like this make it to the floor is when things have kind of been jumbled and there's been a lot of bills. And then when that bill makes it to the floor, it's like a shooting gallery to just rip it in half. Thankfully, here in Colorado. All right, we spent way too much time on that story and arguing the points with it, but I guess it was a good thing. It just continues to show our strength here in Colorado and what we've built. Our foundation. Also, strengths here in Colorado. $10 billion in recreational marijuana has now been sold in Colorado, fueled by strong 2020 sales. $10 billion in marijuana since recreational pot has started being sold in 2014, according to new monthly figures released this week by the Department of Revenue. Total 2020 sales hit $2.19 billion, up sharply from $1.75 billion in all of 2019. According to the state, sales in December alone were $186.34 million. And this is also during a time of pandemic. You have people waiting outside in lines today. Oh my goodness. Wait outside. 6 people allowed inside of the facility here in Denver, I think is what it is. 6 people at a time. And then everybody else has to wait outside in a line 6 feet apart. So even with all that put into place, we still spanked the sales numbers from the previous year. The state said January 2021 sales translated to just under $35 million in state tax and fees revenues. That's just 1 month. So 1 month covering the 40, basically we'll round up, 1 month covering the $40 million that we passed this law with, that the $40 million going to schools. So it's the only thing that any of this money was earmarked when we passed the law here in Colorado was $40 million for schools. Since then, we definitely have more things that have tapped into marijuana and taxes, etc. I think $13 million last year went towards homeless, and then you have roads, $5 million or whatever small amount. Must be a delivery here. The dog is freaking out downstairs. And then a small amount for equity this year, which is an incredibly small number. I don't remember that exact number, but it was smaller than it needed to be. I think we skipped this paragraph. Statewide sales since cannabis retailers opened in 2014 reached $9.98 billion in December, meaning that with the addition of January and partial February sales, Colorado's likely surpassed the $10 billion mark. Marijuana stores collect 2.9% in sales tax, 15% as a dedicated marijuana retail sales tax, and 15% excise tax on wholesale sales of transfers of retail marijuana. Those numbers are a little bit misleading. 15% excise tax on wholesale transfers cannabis does not move on to the consumer. I mean, it may, but that's not added on to consumer sale. 2.9% sales tax plus the 15%, and then any local municipality tax that is added on that, which is generally between, I don't think anybody's at 4% anymore, but between probably 4 and 9%. Do we have places that have cracked the 10, 11, 12% municipality tax here? And probably have. So really what you're looking at is 25% sales tax here in Colorado generally. That would probably be the average for what you're paying out the door, which adds up on large purchases. Oh, and then there's a special tax of cannabis that can be put on top of that. So, but I don't know what this is talking about. Often add local sales tax of more than 20%. Like, that's not. I don't think that's true. Wait, did Denver add a new sales tax? I don't know. We will have to look into that. I don't think that's true. That would jump the taxes into a crazy range. There may be a few locations, but it's not often. $10 billion is incredible and unsurprising at the same time, said Truman Bradley, executive director of the Marijuana Industry Group, Colorado's trade association. The industry has partnered with regulators to do things the right way in Colorado. This state continues to be a leader in regulated cannabis. As for tax revenue, Bradley said the industry understands why state lawmakers took marijuana revenue originally dedicated to drug education efforts to balance the overall budget wrecked by COVID-19 economy, but he said the hope is that the money will go back towards programs meant to keep marijuana away from teenagers. Wait, what? I didn't know this. I don't think anybody really knows this. Okay, we got something to look into. So, because of COVID-19, certain funds were directed from the shit we hate and the wasted money efforts to COVID-19. I did not know that. You would think that we would have enough money to support both of those things, but this is a good thing. This is a good thing. It's a tragedy COVID-19 is happening. But having this money taken away from this to get it back is going to be pretty hard. They'll get it back. They'll get some of it back, but yeah, I bet they won't get all of it though. Shave away at the law enforcement will. That's cool. That's very cool. I didn't know that. I think I've said that 10 times now. It's a big detail. As we emerge from the pandemic and revenue stabilize, it's important we see these programs continue to receive funding. It's not really that important we see these continue funding. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then we got Connecticut. We talked about this yesterday. Governor of Connecticut released a budget request on Wednesday that includes a plan to legalize marijuana. But while the proposal places an emphasis on social equity, are we at 3 hours? Holy shit. Wow. Thought we were like at 2.5. We're at 3 hours. God damn. Easy peasy. Governor of Connecticut released a budget request on Wednesday. We had no news today either. Like, I mean, I guess we did have some news. Like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Had a good show today. Man, there was nothing on news today. I had to search. We legitimately made a mountain out of an anthill. Thank you guys for being here, hanging out. Governor of Connecticut released budget request Wednesday. We already talked about that yesterday. So social equity. The concern from advocates is a lack of specifics. Yeah, I've said that too here this week.
how it's important that it does get to be more specific. Governor Ned Lamont, who convened an informal work group in recent months to make recommendations on the policy change. Oh, by the way, as soon as we hear about that, Virginia, can't do it. As soon as we hear about Virginia putting together their committee and putting the bills together for legalization there, I'll bring you that information too. So I haven't forgot about Virginia. Said his budget plan will involve establishing a comprehensive framework for the cultivation, manufacture, sale, possession, use, and taxation of cannabis that prioritizes public health, public safety, and social justice. The proposal builds on the significant work that the legislature has done on adult use cannabis in recent sessions and ensures an alignment with the approaches pursued by regional states. This is a good thing if the regional states have passed cannabis laws. This is not a good thing if they have not. So that sounds like a them problem rather than a you problem. All right, they need to change their rule. We don't need to kowtow to goddamn other states. All right, if we would have kowtowed to, hey, all right, Wyoming, Montana, and Oklahoma sued our ass. You know what we did? We said fuck couch, and we used the attorney general in our state to battle that, and it was thrown out. Because you know what? The court said it sounds like a you problem rather than a me problem. Yep. Oh, man. It is really rewarding on a very basic and a caveman level for me to be able to talk shit to you guys here about these type of things. It is. It's it makes me feel like a normal human being. It makes me feel alive, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta be honest with you, today's show and yesterday's show is as good as I've felt in years. Definitely since Pops passed away. I felt pretty good with the job I had. And I thought that there was going to be some people at company, you know, that would have my back a little bit more than what they did. But that was a short period of time. But I love this. I could do this all day, every day if there's people here and hanging out with us, chatting, conversation. Probably going to be getting into some gaming later on this afternoon if I don't have a crash of endorphins or whatever the shit after we're done, which happens sometimes. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do another one, and then, but yeah, this is good. I like this. This is comfortable. Frustrating thing is, this is not a me thing. This is a us thing. We got to make it happen. Or I have to actually go to the me thing and want to jump off a cliff. Go work for the post office, like Bike says. I don't want to work for the post office. Please don't make me work for the post office, guys. Come on. I try to break back into the cannabis industry, okay? I don't recommend anybody get in the cannabis industry. I don't anymore. If you don't have money and you are not willing to put your foot in the door, and you know, it's for young people. If it's something that you're thinking you're going to jump over from an established whatever you're doing, if you'd like an adventure, a challenge, sure, do it. But you're going to hit your head a lot. I hate saying that because I'm the one that invited everybody here. I said, hey, make it happen. But it's increasingly more difficult to make it happen, Captain. All right, let's wind down this show. Where were we at here? Details of how communities most impacted by the war on drugs. Talking about Connecticut here. Big thanks to Marijuana Moment for this article and many others today. Most of the articles, though, came from like the Colorado Sun and the MJ Biz Daily and local ABC News. So thank you to those guys for allowing this newsworthy topic to be used as fair use.
The details of how communities commission will be given an important charge to develop guidelines and proposals regarding how individuals and neighborhoods that have been most affected by the enforcement of cannabis prohibition can benefit from the creation of the legal market. Jason Ortiz, Connecticut-based president of the Minority Cannabis Business Association and member of Lamont's Cannabis Equity Task Force, told Marijuana Moment that the details of how the legal market is implemented will matter. The recommendations from the task force were clear, and I'm hopeful the governor heard us, but saying you support equity is not the same as backing it up with systematic change and robust investment, he said. I still think we have fundamental disagreements over what equity means, but look forward to analyzing the details, he said, adding that he plans to review every line of the bill and will work with lawmakers and stakeholders to make sure that, quote, the final policy that passes in Connecticut puts equity first in language and in dollars. In broad strokes, the summary of Lamont's plan makes the case that the current approach to criminalizing marijuana has been a harmful failure. Quote, cannabis prohibition has not worked. It has failed to protect public health and safety and instead caused significant injustices for many residents, especially people in black and brown communities, because of enforcement laws. With legal cannabis available in neighboring states, Governor Lamont has made the decision to introduce, taking the me problem seriously and addressing it. Governor Lamont has made the decision to introduce legislation that would create a legal market for cannabis in Connecticut that is well regulated to protect consumers and the public at large. Hey, thanks, GTO. Have yourself a fantastic day. We appreciate you, man. Been here for, I think, every single show. That's impressive. And then where was I at? Let's just reread this. With legal cannabis available or soon to be in neighboring states, we were at the bottom of this. It's going to reduce the size and influence of the black market and prevent economic loss from residents crossing the border to neighboring states. Some other key provisions of the bill: adults 21 and older would be allowed to possess up to 1.5 ounces of marijuana. Home grow not permitted, but penalties for personal cultivation will be reduced. And the Consumer Protection Department of the state would be in charge of studying the policy for change later. It's probably not going to get changed later. If it's not included now, the chances of home grow getting included later are slim to none, because home grow starts with wide rules and then is shaved away from there as time goes on and as it is regulated by local municipalities. So the farther you get down on the ladder with legalizing home grow, it just gets shaved away, and there's no room. The room for adding it later, we'll see. It's yet to be proven. But yet to be proven effective adding it later. Regulators will be responsible for approving licenses for cultivators, retailers, hybrid medical adult use retailers, micro cultivators. This is the new one that came up. Like, they said this multiple times. Micro cultivators. Stop it. This is not. Do not include this in shit, okay? Name it something different. There's so many licenses in different states that are named weird things. Another one. Product manufacturers, food and beverage manufacturers, product packagers, and delivery services. In the initial stage, licenses will be approved via a lottery system. Existing medical cannabis businesses could convert to recreational for a substantial fee. This is where we're at in America right now. Like, for a substantial fee, the government will allow you to do business that you are already doing and have already been approved for. We just know that you're going to make a lot more money on this, so we need to take a little bit more money from you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's fair, but to say for a substantial fee. And I forget what it was yesterday. I thought of like a criminal plan of like, it's like $50,000 at the most licensed, and I forgot what it was. Probably for good reason. It probably was shoved out of my brain and dumped down the toilet because it was a bad idea. But still, Adult use cannabis would launch in May 2022. A standard sales tax and excise tax, $1.25 per gram of flower, would be imposed on marijuana sales. Local municipalities that allow cannabis businesses to operate in their areas would also be able to impose an additional 3% tax. In fiscal year 2023, an estimated $33.6 million in revenue will be generated from the cannabis market, growing to 90. Listen, the summary, you don't know what you're talking about. These numbers are not going to be accurate, okay? I would be surprised if the numbers are accurate. You're probably going to get more. To estimate how much cannabis sales you will have is, as we just mentioned, in Colorado, like, there was not an estimate of how much we have had gained here in Colorado. The estimates were wrong. Absolutely wrong. The idea that cannabis taxes would tower taxes of alcohol would have been is something that probably surprises you. But yes, it's happened here in Colorado. It's happened for multiple years now. So liquor sales and liquor taxes, unless the tax is increased, will never be above, again, what cannabis produces here in Colorado tax-wise. All right. Probably a big reason why is because the tax percentage of cannabis is quite a bit. But also at the same time, sell a lot of weed here, all right? So these estimates, they're not accurate. We just don't have an estimate of this and an underground, included with the underground idea of who will come out of the woodwork and who will buy, how effective the retail system will be. It's just silly to bring in the numbers into that. We just know that it's going to be a lot, and it's going to be an effective system if you write the rules correctly. Everything else, the money will be there, okay? We'll worry about that later. Marijuana-related convictions from before October 2015 in Connecticut would be automatically expunged. The legalization of cannabis possession and the erasure of prior convictions will help erase some of the disproportionate impact on the war on drugs on our state's black and brown communities, the plan says. Law enforcement would not be able to conduct searches, stops, or seizures based on the odor of cannabis, except in the context of impaired driving. People could not be denied professional licenses from the state because of their work in the cannabis industry or use of marijuana. To ensure that the program meets public safety standards, the governor is proposing to add 64 jobs to the Consumer Protection Department. One unique component would be to involve having secret shoppers inspect cannabis businesses to ensure compliance. And this shit happens everywhere. So they have compliance checks here in Colorado where the state sends people out and they, check their ID for underage and allowing them to go through. The first couple of times that this happened, we had no violations. And then I think a couple of dispensaries went and farked it up, and we've had some violations since then on that. But overall, very, very much more effective of an ID check system and not allowing minors. I almost said minority. What? I stopped myself. Minors from getting access to cannabis. At the store level, at the retail level, having the ID, scanned, catching fake IDs. There's no one better in Colorado at catching fake IDs than the people that work the front desk of cannabis industry, and especially those people that work the front desk in places like Breckenridge or ski resort towns that are very popular destinations for like spring breakers and college cats. No kidding. There are a couple IDs that I have seen that I would have never caught. That's my biggest fear if I were to be, a bud tender or work the front desk, is allowing a fake ID through. There's some good fake shit out there. But these places say, like up in Breckenridge or something, hundreds of fake IDs confiscated every spring break and every season. So it's crazy. But that's what's going on in Connecticut. We'll stay up to date on that, as we will stay up to date on everything that we have brought you. Are we out of beds again? Man, the amount of time that we've spent here on JDR today has been surprising. Dropped 913 frames. I wonder where that came from. Three hours, 15 minutes, good quality, awesomeness. So we'll cut it there.
Mainly because we don't really have anything else prepared, and it was a good package show. I'd like to get this over to YouTube and filed away, and then if we're going to come back and hang out here in a little while, we'll do that then. I'm thinking production-wise. Anyway, I'm going to grab a bite to eat. That's the first thing that needs to happen. For these long shows, man, if we have long shows, there's like 50 people in here. We're going to have to use the order. And we're all the way over here in the damn corner of the city. There's not a ton of orders. Yeah. These are the things that we bite off when they come. Okay, we'll get there. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. John Doe Radio Show. Cut it here so we have a full packaged show. Get over to YouTube. And then I'll probably be back with you guys here in a little bit. Seems like the 10 o'clock time is going to work. I think we had about 10 people here a minute ago. Yeah, cool. Have a fantastic day, guys. I am your host, John Doe, a.k.a. Tim. Big thanks to our sponsor, Get Seeds Right Here. GetSeedsRightHere.com. The place for your reliable seeds. Until we meet again later today or tomorrow. As I said, I'm John Doe. You're excellent. See you.
Live.
Mind your motherfucking business and let a thug smoke.
John Doe Radio.